everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Accommodation Show. This week, we are joined by the amazing Eric Goldreyer from B&B Finder, but also from quite a few other businesses. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Bart. Good to be here.
I've been looking forward to this for a while. We met at VRMA in the States last year.
In Orlando, yes.
In Florida. Yeah, you joined our Facebook group and you said, hey, I've got a great story. And that's when I was like, oh, I want to tell everybody about this story because you've been in the industry for quite a while and you've sold a couple of businesses along the way, and now you're onto your third kind of venture. I'm sure you've done other things in the past, but within this space, you've had a couple of businesses, and I think that's incredibly valuable. Is there's you're quite modest. You said, oh look, I was in the right place at the right time, or you just provide a product of value, but it's not as easy as that. And I think there's a lot of insights that we can glean from you for those that are trying to create a business which is saleable. So, Eric, first of all, thanks once again for coming onto the show. How are you going?
Things are good. Things are busy. I feel very fortunate to be in an industry that I love and getting to continue to innovate and bring solutions to people that value them. It's a rewarding experience.
And how long have you been in the industry for?
Well, I thought we weren't going to talk about my age. No. I've been staying, my wife and I we've been married 34 years. We started going to bed and breakfasts right when we got married, like in 1990. So loved hospitality since that time. And really it was that love of going and staying in these quaint bed and breakfasts outside of Dallas, Texas, and all of these smaller towns that led me to see that it was really a pain trying to find bed and breakfasts. I mean, this is back pre-internet. This was guidebooks. You had to read a guidebook to even see which one had a hot tub. And then you call them and they're out of business because the book was researched 3 years ago and published 2 years ago. And so it's like, okay, we need to create a master database of information to make it easier for people to find B&Bs. And the plan at the time was, let's create this database and let's license it to the proprietary networks, the Prodigies, the CompuServes, the AOLs, the Microsoft networks, Delphi, eWorld, those guys. And as we were building the content and creating this master database, the internet comes out and we're like, well, we're just going to go do this ourselves. And, with a little bit of luck and a lot of hard work, we had a really good time and created a leading website in the world, I guess, for true bed and breakfast, not Airbnbs, but actual, bed and breakfasts.
And then you sold that business, and can you tell everyone what it was called?
Yeah, so I started bedandbreakfast.com. Interestingly enough, I sold it in 1999 to a company called WorldRes, which was basically a copycat company to what is now hotels.com. But at the time, it was the Hotel Reservation Network, or HRN, which was a call center that travelers could call this 1-800 number and get negotiated net rates on hotels that this company did. So WorldRes acquired us. I continued to run bedandbreakfast.com for WorldRes for 3 years. They didn't quite make it. I ended up buying it back in 2002. We built it to be the leading site for bed and breakfasts. We also had a company called Valuation, which was the leading property management software in the bed and breakfast space. And we sold that to HomeAway in 2010. And then they went on, as you probably know, and HomeAway sold to Expedia in 2016. Yeah, and then Expedia shut down HomeAway, shut down bedandbreakfast.com, and just used VRBO, or what they now call Verbo.
So, but what's interesting about that, right, is that a lot of it is the play on the data, right, on that database, and what you kind of solving that problem to start off with is actually saying, hey, we've got the database, and then you build on that database, right? You build on those relationships and contracts and everything like that, and they get to know you. But you were very cognizant of the fact at the very start that you were solving a real problem. That hey, it's hard to find a bed and breakfast, and it's kind of a category
Right.
that's been underserved.
Absolutely. I think, and that's what's fun about it as an entrepreneur is being in an industry that you love and finding needs that you can bring a solution to the market for, and seeing the market adopt your product or your business, or is just a lot of fun. It's a lot of hard work, but it's a lot of fun.
And then, so do you have a tech background?
No, I'm the guy that if you come to my house, the VCR, we still had a VCR, the clock is flashing 12 o'clock. I'm not a techie. I would say I'm a sales, marketing, branding idea guy. But it just happened to be that the internet was coming out as I was getting out of college and sort of deciding what I was going to do. And I was able to meld hospitality with the internet back before other people had done it. So just, sort of, as you said earlier, right time with the right idea. My only downside was I chose true bed and breakfast instead of vacation rentals at the time. Much bigger industry.
Sure. But I mean, to be able to have that foresight, right? We'd all be billionaires. Like that's one of the ones, right? And bed and breakfast was always sort of like traditionally for thousands of years a category, right? And then so it made it complete sense for you to be in there, and you're the right place in the right time for that. But as you said, is the sort of short term rental space kind of took over, and that business model actually got created. It was something that was impossible without the internet. So to be able to envisage that was what was going to happen would have been. I would argue that Brian Chesky didn't know what he was onto when he started.
It's funny, Bart, because I agree with you. He sort of put a twist on it because I mean VRBO has been around since the late '90s. So vacation rentals aren't new to Brian Chesky and Airbnb. And vacation property management companies have been around, I don't know, the 60s, 70s before. I mean, that's been an industry for years. It's just been a very mom and pop localized industry. There weren't regional or national players like you saw with Vacasa and Evolve and Interhome, et cetera.
Yeah. Okay. So a couple of things I really want everyone to glean from this episode is that kind of getting to a stage where you can sell the business, right? And we'll talk about your second venture in a second, then we'll go on to what you're doing now, if time permits. But
sure,
you were solving a problem, then you're like, oh, I'm going to sell this, kind of like a directory almost to the AOLs of the world, and almost like those Yahoo days where everyone's building a directory and a database. You're like, oh, if we can get data, we've got something of value. Then you start to build it up. You're like, I'll build my own website, and that way I can be in control of that. And throughout that process, you're quite cognizant of solving a problem, but in your mind at the time, were you like, how are we going to cash out of this, and how are we going to make the money? Like, who's going to be our potential buyer in the future? Because you actually said that was already in your mind at the very start.
Yeah, it's a great question. I always set out to build a business that's going to be a profitable, self-sustaining business. And without, I would say, and maybe honestly to my detriment, without a clear plan on, is this going to be a hold it, run it business, or are we going to set this up to sell it? When we sold to HomeAway 2010, They approached us a year before we sold to them and tried to buy us. And I'm like, guys, I don't want to sell. This is fun. We're about to go international. When we sold in 2010, our largest destination was Rome, Italy. We had more bed and breakfasts in Rome, Italy than any other destination in the world. So they had to convince me to sell it to them. And I think what put it over the line was, at the time, my kids were 12, 10, and 7. And I thought, okay, I'm never going to get this time back with my kids. I'm going to give my team the opportunity to, have a liquidity event. And we ended up selling it. But again, maybe the smarter thing to do is to make a decision right up front that we're going to build this to hold it, or we're going to build this to sell it. I think both times, bedandbreakfast.com, maybe that's not fair. Bedandbreakfast.com, we didn't really have a plan. Turnkey vacation rentals, we had to have a plan because we had a lot of outside money in that company. And so they had to get a liquidity event.
Yeah, gotcha. And I think I might have misspoke a little bit, because also you said, you'd sell it to the AOLs and all that kind of stuff, into those companies, but maybe not so much that you were selling it to them, but you were solving a problem for them. So you could have been licensing to them, right? And having this database which they can then use. So more so that you had figured out who your customers were. And it's kind of interesting because you'd have the consumer, and then you'd have the business who is actually your customer, and there is the intermediary.
That's right. Yeah. So in any marketplace, right, we needed to have the supply first before we had anything of value. Ultimately, the customer is the traveler. But in that proprietary network marketplace, our customers, we were going to try and license our data set to all of those proprietary networks. And again, I would say, not because I had this great epiphany or I'm this brilliant guy. When we looked at what it was going to cost, when we started talking to MSN, was the first one. They wanted us not to license them the data. They wanted us to start writing code in some code base called Blackhawk. And so we're like, okay, this is going to get really expensive. And it was sort of out of necessity that we went internet versus 8 different proprietary networks. And we were a little bit lucky that, okay, that was the winning platform.
Yeah, right. Okay, so you were working on this right at the very, very beginning, at the very start.
Yeah. It was Al Gore and myself. We invented the internet.
I do a presentation and we talk about when the internet was created and Wi-Fi and stuff like that, and it's all brand new. But okay, cool. So that's fascinating. So you're going around. You figured out that there's a need to consolidate the bed and breakfast and to put them into a database. You've got, so the end user needs to find the data, and they need to find that sort of thing. I mean, ultimately, you could have, you could have continued being a TripAdvisor or whatever, right? Your own OTA. One of the questions that I have for you is twofold. So you've got the idea, and then you need to build a bit of a team around it, and you don't have money potentially if that was one of your first ventures. How do you tackle that problem?
Yeah, we were fortunate in that we were able to raise enough friends and family money that it got us to the point that we sold to WorldRes, in which case they funded the business and its growth for the next 3 years. And then I bought it back right at the time that it was going cash flow positive. So we didn't need to raise any more money. We just grew it organically, bootstrapping it, and didn't go take a big
amazing. And then so for that initial team from the friends and family round, what were you doing with the money? Or was it hiring people, or were you using it for marketing?
Initially it was just outsourcing a web design shop, outsourcing a database design shop to build out the schema so that it all worked. This is back in the day that most people didn't actually have internet. And if they did, it was a dial-up modem. So we were mailing out forms that innkeepers were literally filling out, sending us hard copy photos. That all had to come in. We paid a third party to data enter all of the information on the forms, to scan all the images, 3 different resolutions. So it went to building out the infrastructure for the business and gathering the content. Obviously now everybody's online and all that is done by the end user.
Yeah, absolutely right. So you can set up a website that'll come to you. But then, so for that initial stage, were you targeting particular areas to build it? Are we like, we're going to focus on this area and then go to the next area, or was that sort of spray and pray? What was the
United States
for growth?
Yeah, it was any bed and breakfast in the United States. We were trying to get them on our website, so we had the most comprehensive database that was easily searchable, so that consumers found value. And then more and more consumers come, and then more innkeepers are like, wow, that site's really good. They're getting a lot of users. More innkeepers come, and it's just this, right? It's the
sure, yeah. It gets easier as you go. And what was that sort of point where you felt that you had enough businesses on there, that the product was valuable enough to the end user on the other side? Because if you've got one property or a few properties in just one location, but everything else is in Rome, right? Like, it's not going to work. So what was that inflection point where like we've got 1,000 or 2,000 or 10,000? What was the number where you're like, this is actually
we got to about 5,000 actual bed and breakfasts with detailed information, and that was at the time more comprehensive and thorough and easily searchable than any guidebook or guidebook series. And back in the day, there were a few different ladies in the United States, Bernice Chesler, Sandy Soul, that had 7 different guidebooks for different regions of the United States. So we were more comprehensive. And once we had those and we internationalized the site, then we started getting inbound B&Bs from around the world.
A lot easier at that point once you've got that scale as well, and then you've got the systems and processes to onboard them a lot easier. You know exactly what questions you need to ask them and that sort of thing as you're growing. But that growth path for a founder and entrepreneur, it's quite terrifying and quite difficult to achieve because everybody's it's not that everybody's saying no, you can't do it. I don't think people talk about it all the time, and they say, oh, you can't do it. I haven't had anyone actually say that you can't do it. It's just that they can't see the vision because you can't really see it yourself either, because you're still growing and you're still trying to figure it out as you go. As you said, you did a bit of pivoting as well as you were going there. But it is a terrifying endeavor, and it's hard to know which levers to pull at which point. Do you have any advice that you could give to people that are on a growth trajectory? They've got some kind of vision in their mind, but they're like, then they go, well, all right, friends and family round. Are we hiring marketers? Are we hiring new tech people? How do we figure out where to invest our time and resources when we're in growth mode?
That's a great question. And if I had the magic silver bullet answer to that, everyone listening to this podcast would have already read my book, which I haven't written. But it's a lot of focus, right? I think there's a little bit of being lucky. There's a lot of hard work. There's a lot of optimism. You can't be an entrepreneur if you're not optimistic. People are going to hear what you're up to and think you're crazy. If you're raising money and you think it's the best idea in the world, but there's going to be people that don't get it and they're going to say no. I think my advice would be, if you really know what the market needs, stay true to that and don't listen to every different potential investor that you speak to that says, oh, no, you need to be doing it this way. No, you need to do this way. And I think entrepreneurs can get in the, not rut, but position to where they just try to keep pivot. and you're not going to gain any traction anywhere. You got to sort of draw a line in the sand of what you know the market needs and deliver that as well as you can, and watch your expenses and get the business as far along as you can, because growth begets growth.
And how do you figure out what the market needs? What's the, like, there's lots of different strategies is what I'm trying to get at. For you to be able to go, I know that this is what the market actually really needs. Because the thing is that quite often it also changes, right? And what you thought they needed changes along your journey. So it might not be outside thing. The clients can be coming back and just going, oh, it's a little bit different. How do you know that you're onto the right path?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously what you think the market needs. I think most people, right? Oh gosh, everyone has this idea of, I'm going to create this product, or I see this opportunity. Lots of people see opportunities. Very few people act on them. And then of those that act on them, very few of them are successful in acting on them. But I think a lot of people are in different situations in their day-to-day life, and they think, wow, that could be done so much better. Or wow, it'd be so valuable if I didn't have to do it this way. There was this app that did this, or a website that did this, or a product that did this. And I think, there's typical business plan stuff. Look at the potential competition. Look at the total addressable market size. Look at what it's going to cost you to do. There's all that business stuff that is good for you. It's not as fun. It's like training, right? I just got to do this triathlon 2 days ago, and I'm not one of those guys that's looking at my heart rate, wearing the heart rate monitor and checking my cadence and what zone everything's in. Man, I'm going to go swim, bike, and run, and I'm going to have fun. I'm not saying you can be that cavalier in creating a business. You need to have specific, tight things that you execute on and deliver on and measure and report on. But you want to have, the more fun it is, the more passionate you are about it, the more you want to give it everything you got. And I think that's also
let's talk about that as well, because I think passion is something that let's talk about passion, because I think it's something that we can that you can become more passionate as you work on a business or in an industry, because you start to understand more, and that passion can kind of grow. And I think that can be in quite a few industries. I've had, I used to work in solar, doing solar. I used to sell blenders, and I was passionate about the blenders. It doesn't have to be like one thing that you're passionate about forever, but you can develop that passion.
That's right.
And that interest. And one of the things that I've learned when we're hiring or we're recruiting is we're really looking for people that are curious and that then develop that passion through that curiosity about an industry or product, and then they become really valuable employees because they're engaged with what they're actually doing. Of course, you've developed a big passion for it. I mean, I think that you said that you started off just by staying in a bed and breakfast, and it was just based on that then your passion grew. What can you tell us about passion?
Great question. What can I tell you about passion? If you can find a way to earn a living that keeps you in your passion, whatever your passion is, you're winning. Personally, I feel that life is about relationships, friends, family. And I think that's why I like travel, because travel mainly is about spending time with friends and family and creating memories and experiences together. And so it's easy to be passionate about that, maybe. I mean, I bet if you asked a lot of people love travel. It's fun to be in an industry that brings so much joy and happiness to so many people, right? You can be passionate about that. Doesn't have to be, I'm passionate about me personally traveling, but I'm passionate about putting smiles on people's faces and having families be able to have a better vacation because you provided them with some tool that allowed them to go create memories that they're going to remember the rest of their lives.
I couldn't agree more. I think that for me, one of the drivers of everything that I do is others. It's kind of it's a bit, there's money that isn't going to solve anything. It just means I can get a bigger stake or whatever. It doesn't really matter to me. It's more about, hey, if I can make an impact on people on my day to day, then it gives me a reason to get out of bed and to keep on doing what I'm doing because, and that's scalable, like you can help more and more people. So, I think that's part of that passion. Yeah. Now, look, I'm cognizant of the fact that we actually don't have a huge amount of time left on the episode, and there's probably a huge amount that we haven't covered. But we might actually even do another one, and we can go and talk about the second business. So maybe we just get stuck here, which is okay. But I want to talk about that sort of acquisition part where you weren't thinking of selling the business, then someone approached you, tapped you on the shoulder, and said, "Hey, we want in on it." When they're tapping you on the shoulder and they're saying, "Hey, we want to do something," you're like, "No," and they're like, "All right, maybe we'll think about it." Who did you approach for advice and to figure out like how you value this thing and how you put this sort of a deal together?
Yeah. So when we were approached and we said, "Hey, look, the business isn't for sale," and they're like, "Well, we're about to go public. We really want to buy you before we go public." And we said, "Well, look, we're not trying to sell it. You're going to have to make us an offer that we can't say no to." And so they made us an offer, and we were like, "Okay, why are they wasting our time? This is the worst offer ever." So we said, "Hey guys, thank you. Really appreciate the interest, but no, thank you." And then for a year, we just executed on the business. And then a year later, they contacted us back and they're like, "Hey, remember us? We're still interested in acquiring you guys." And, we got to work with Carl Shepard, who is an amazing individual and has been in hospitality a fair amount himself. And he was great to work with. But they came back to us and said, "Well, how did you do since the first time we talked a year ago on, all the metrics that you told us you were going to do?" And we told them we beat every metric we shared with you. We told you at the time those were conservative estimates, and we blew all those numbers away. Once we did that, then they came back to us with an offer that was like, "Okay, don't have to work again if you don't want to." Of course, being an entrepreneur, that's no fun. You're going to go create things because you have ideas and you see opportunity and you want to bring solutions to market. I had a few people that I could talk to at the time. One was my president of the business. He came in, he worked with me at WorldRes, John Banzak, and then we became friends, and I brought him on to be COO, and then he became president, sort of ran the business from a day-to-day perspective. And so we would, map things out together, talk to our different networks, and get some guardrails, if you will, on where the valuation should be. And then it's also tied to earnouts and who's going to stay and for how long. So what type of hair there is on the deal. Then the deal just ended up being a deal that was like, okay, I literally can step down and be with my kids, drive them to school every day, pick them up, get on the lake, do whatever, coach my daughter's volleyball team. And that was and the fact that we could take the money off the table, give our early investors a nice return. It was good enough. I mean, you get to that point where it's like, okay, how much is enough?
And did at that part, because of course, I take it on that first round, you guys would have had some NDAs signed, and they would have been doing some due diligence before they made that first offer?
That's right. Their first offer was based on our trailing numbers, and I don't think they really thought that we were going to deliver what we told them we were going to deliver over the next year. And once we delivered it, they were like, oh, wow, okay, well, everybody always says their numbers are conservative. So they just thought that we were blowing smoke, potentially. I don't know.
Yeah, well, and that's always the way as well, right? A lot of businesses are built on, hey, you won't believe how much we're going to make in the future, right? From all of the big players out there. Look, what I want to do, Eric, is I like to keep these episodes around about half an hour, 35 minutes, something like that. And there are more parts to your story. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to invite you back. I'm going to invite you back to do part two, which will be setting up and selling your second business. And then we may do a part three as well. But I think that that's a really great introduction for people to give them a bit of inspiration in terms of what's possible, in terms of the fact that you can grow, you can scale, that you're looking to solve a particular problem, build some passion within the industry. Are there any final thoughts to kind of wrap up this part?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head. I would just say, if you're an entrepreneur and you want to start a business, the sooner you do it, the less risky it is. If you can start it when you're younger, before you have commitments, before you have kids, it just takes the risk out of it. Be your biggest cheerleader and go, 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 go.
Pretend you're running a triathlon, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm an Ironman.
All right, folks. Eric, thank you so much for coming on. What is the best way for people to get in touch with you? I know that you're currently running B&B Finder, and that's a new innovative business. I'm really excited to talk about that. LinkedIn, Facebook, what's the best way for people to find you?
People can email me directly, Eric, ERIC, at B&B Finder, or I'm on LinkedIn, Eric Goldreyer.
That's amazing. And look, it goes to show as well, folks, is that it doesn't matter how many businesses you've bought and sold. Eric's coming on and giving his private email address that you can go and literally get in touch with him, and he'll have a chat with you and engage with you in a meaningful way, because it is a passion. It's not just a job. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in. If you are listening to it on any of your favorite streaming platforms, then make sure you leave us a review. 5 stars is what we're looking for, and it makes a big difference. If you're on the YouTube, give us a like, a subscribe as well. Share this around. Share this episode, because there will be a part 2, which will come later in the season. Thank you so much, Mr. Eric.
Great to spend time with you. Thanks for having me.